Early reports from the Minnesota Vikings have revealed that some of the top defenders this season are planning to return to the Minnesota Vikings for the next few seasons. We're going to be breaking down all of these reports and what changes the defense can make to make this even better than last year. Now, before we get into this video, we know that 91% of you guys watching right now are not subscribed to the channel. We're on the road to 1K, and your guys' support has been absolutely incredible lately, and we appreciate all of it. So if you're looking for a spot to get all of your Minnesota Vikings news, you're in the right spot. You won't miss a beat. We have a lot to bring you this summer, and you will not want to miss it. But Griffen, without any further ado, let's get into our first little tidbit of news regarding some top defenders in Jonathan Greenard and Andrew Van Ginkel. And as on the other end of the line, Jonathan Greenard's contract from March of last year makes him much more secure for next season. The 27-year-old pass rush specialist, took most of his cash in 2024 in form of a signing bonus in order to save the Vikings money against last year's cap. This season, though, the Vikings cap space is scheduled to increase from $5.7 million to $22.3 million. Unlike Van Ginkel, cutting Greenard prior to the March 12th is not an option. It would cost Minnesota $32.2 million in cap penalties. Now, I think regardless of the contract, there's no way you're cutting Jonathan Greenard. After what he had done for this team last season, after what he has done, to the defense last season, I think there is no way that you can feasibly cut him and make it make sense. We've seen this defense, and obviously, towards the end of the season, there was a shift from the beginning to the end. A lot of that was due to, the scheme that Brian Flores was giving this, a lot more blitz heavy towards the end of the season. But from the beginning to, let's just say about week 10, we really saw what this defense had and what this defense could do before the change was ultimately made. And Jonathan Greenard, a player that, is a fan favorite in Minnesota already, certainly has that idea that he needs to stay on this team. And one more little thing here, for a different reason, but similar, contract extension to both Andrew Van Ginkel and Jonathan Greenard makes sense. Both guys vastly outperformed their expectations last season. Thus, the Vikings could offer Greenard more term and a nice signing bonus in exchange for a discount on his cap hit in 2025. Obviously, he isn't planning on leaving Minnesota anytime soon. And Griffen, anytime soon is certainly what we're looking at with this tweet here, from an Instagram story, I guess, from Jonathan Greenard, coming from Minnesota sports fan. Jonathan Greenard in a Brock Faber Minnesota Wild jersey in his new house in Minnesota before a Minnesota Wild game. And if this doesn't say that he's staying in Minnesota, I don't know what does. But obviously a fantastic report to see right here on Jonathan Greenard.
Yeah, it's awesome that these are the kind of positive rumblings that we're getting out of this team, where a lot of the conversation that we've been having is mainly circling around guys that are probably leaving and what we're coming in to bring as the replacements. So it's very refreshing to be getting on here talking about guys that could be staying in Minnesota and for a much longer period of time. We know we got Blake Cashman for a few more seasons. He led the team in tackles, and then you have Jonathan Greenard and Andrew Van Ginkel that anchored down that linebacker core at the end there. And with Van Ginkel, you can keep him around. Jonathan Greenard, you absolutely keep him around for the pressure that he was able to bring on the edge. Van Ginkel was a great momentum shift guy with those turnovers, those touchdowns. We were in there was a lot of games that we won or that had a massive momentum shift because of the things that he was doing on defense. So you definitely want to keep those guys around here longer, and keeping Brian Flores around a lot longer is definitely a way of going towards that.
Yeah, and as we do look at Jonathan Greenard's contract here, it is certainly a bigger increase in price. As you see, the cap hit this year is $22.3 million. The dead cap for a buy it will be $32 million, which we don't even need to look at. We know that would not happen. But next year, the same price. But as that article just said before, we could extend him to lower that price and kind of secure him longer term, but also help out the Vikings in that way. But a cap hit, or a dead cap, of next season, 9.9, would be, if the Vikings were to cut him at any point, it would be then, but hopefully we don't see it. And as you see at the bottom there, this time next year, that security goes away for Greenard, and yes, his $18.4 million salary remains the same, so does his cap of $22.3, but the Vikings could also cut him next offseason for a measly $9.9 million in dead cap penalty. So, barring any insane circumstances, it does seem like Jonathan Greenard is here to stay, and certainly at the way, at least right now, or thinking right now after the season, there is no way to make sense to cut him at all. But when we look at Andrew Van Ginkel as well, we kind of head into a different scenario where he is running out of term and certainly is going to be an option that could be cut. But once again, I think we're in this scenario where there is no way you can cut Andrew Van Ginkel, especially with what he had done last season. Meanwhile, Andrew Van Ginkel's extension is even more obvious because he will want the to return to his prove-it 2-year deal from last offseason into more of a long-term security and way more total dollars. In return, the Minnesota Vikings will get back or get to lock in one of their premier coverage outside linebackers in the NFL for a decent discount, especially in the first year or two. And as we kind of do look at Andrew Van Ginkel's as well, when you look at the cap hit from this most recent season into the next, it is a gain, but $12.4 million for Andrew Van Ginkel is certainly one that we want to keep. This is a good price still, especially from what we've seen him do earlier, kind of the same way as early on last season. We've seen the blitz develop more at the end of the season, but flashing back to, the game against the Giants, we saw Andrew Van Ginkel go look at the blitz or look like he's going to blitz, stop in the route, pick 6 off Daniel Jones. And, that is what really we see in Andrew Van Ginkel. There's so much potential that he has. And, if the blitz game maybe slowed down a bit at the midway point of last season, we may have seen a lot more of a defensive masterclass from him, more than we had already seen. So obviously, Andrew Van Ginkel is certainly a candidate to keep as well. And I think that there's no way we don't look at this. And in a moment, Griffen, before we kind of go deeper into it and look at another screenshot for another reason that he may stay, Andrew Van Ginkel is obviously a big piece of what this team has. And 29-year-old Van Ginkel, however, is entering the final year of his 2-year deal that has very team-friendly, outbuilt into the offseason. The Vikings could cut Andrew Van Ginkel, who would cost $12.4 million against the cap in 2025. Before the start of the league year, they'd save nearly $6 million after eating his $6.6 million in dead cap. But the same thing as what I just had a moment ago. Why would you cut these two after what we'd seen last year, pairing these guys up with Blake Cashman, seeing one of the best linebacker cores in the NFL, having one of the best DCs in the NFL, and going off what we've seen last season, progressing into an even better, more chemistry, ready to go again, ready to fight back defensive core? Why would you cut any of these guys? I don't understand it, Griffen. I really don't.
Yeah, there's absolutely no reason why you would cut either of these guys, whether it's to save money or whatnot. These guys have meant so much to this defense. Andrew Van Ginkel, like I just said, and like you just said as well, with the way that he was able to get those turning point turnovers and run them back for touchdowns, not blitzing every single time. That's something that Brian Flores needs to do next season, especially if they want to keep this defensive core together for as long as they want to. You make sure that, hey, we got a turnover in every single game this season. Let's drop back into coverage, trust in our linebackers that have good reach, trust in our speedy corners that can create turnovers, and let them be the ones that force a quarterback to make a mistake instead of the quarterback forcing or catching us off guard and having someone wide open for a crossing route, whether it's a check down that goes for 15 yards. Things like that always tend to happen to the Vikings, especially in key moments when they're blitzing too much. So if you're able to bring in Van Ginkel, who going into last season was one of my most hyped up signings that we got. When we got him, I was super happy. Some people were saying, why are you so excited about it? I said, look at what he did in Miami, especially with Brian Flores. And he's done nothing short of exceed those expectations. So having him around for a lot longer bodes well for this defense. And with all the movement that we're going to be seeing in the secondary, you don't want to have too much shakeup happening on this defense if you don't have to extend beyond the secondary. Keep that linebacking core together because those are the ones that are basically holding it down so that you don't have to worry about the guys in the secondary. And they're helping pick up the slack for the guys that are in the front ones that can't get home right away. So having those guys be consistent and having that chemistry there is paramount to having a successful defense. And if Minnesota can keep these three guys together, improve the rushers a little bit, keep some guys like Byron Murphy and Cam Bynum in the secondary. Maybe Harry comes back for one more ride. You lose Shaq Griffen, you lose Stephon Gilmore, but you bring in two other good pieces. Maybe Malachi Starks from Georgia, or you go out and get a guy in free agency. Then you can kind of bolster that down. And then when you go from there, that defense looks very not super different, but still even more powerful than they were last season. And if Brian Flores lays off the blitz button a little bit, maybe they're even more effective and we start to see something very, very special with this Vikings defensive unit and maybe even a second coming of the Purple People Eaters.
Yeah, as you mentioned there, the Vikings could look pretty different on paper on the depth chart, but realistically, the team will look the same on the field. As long as we kind of secure the middle of the field there, the secondary was doing a great job, doing a good job on the rush for the most part, but with the blitz-heavy defense that Brian Flores had, there always seemed to be just a hole in the middle that any team could easily get a first down. And when you have a guy like Andrew Van Ginkel, there's no point in blitzing every single time. His pass coverage is incredible, and you got to give him the opportunity to actually be able to do that rather than put the pressure on the QB every single time. But as we kind of as I kind of hinted at earlier, looking at what we've another little hint here that we may see Andrew Van Ginkel back. Him and JJ McCarthy were at the Timberwolves game the other day, and obviously, got a home in Minnesota now, and there's no way he's leaving. He's here. He loves the city. He loves the people, and I think this is a very good sign having him and JJ McCarthy getting this team keeping this team still together. JJ McCarthy especially as well. Nice to see him there, but it does look like this defense is here for the long run, and I sure hope they do, because this team could be even more special than what we had seen last year. So let us know what you think in the comments below about these two. I guess I shouldn't say moves, because they ain't going nowhere, but the two ideas of keeping these guys, not worrying about really the monetary issues that may come in a few years down the line, but keeping this team together, I think, is the priority right now, especially this linebacker core. So, like I said, let us know what you think in the comments below, and what other maybe linebackers the Vikings should maybe add, or are looking to add, or could add to kind of improve this as well, especially with a good group of mentors there for any of these young guys right now. But that's all we got for this video. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. But we're signing out. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.